Hello, everyone. This is Marianne with the Sustainable Living Podcast. I'm here a day late and a dollar short, as they say, because yesterday was International Podcast Day. And I was busy yesterday. I'm going to tell you all about it in a sec. Just wanted to let you know what to expect from this episode. It's me telling you a little bit about what I did for International Podcasting Day, and also an update on the Homestead, on health, and on some projects I'm embarking on. Something I have been wanting to do, and now I really need to do it. I have a reason now. And that project is declutter. Oh no. So first, let me tell you what I did on International Podcasting Day. I was in Los Angeles at the Outlier Podcast Festival and got to meet some of my podcasting heroes. I met Taz Ahmed from Good Muslim, Bad Muslim, a show I have been listening to from the very first episode, and it's very close to my heart. So it was very nice to see her in person. I actually, one of the reasons I went to Podcast Movement was to see her, and she ended up going to Hawaii instead. Like, who can blame her, right? Going to Anaheim or Hawaii, I would go to Hawaii too. No question asked. So I was so pleased that my good friend Katie Ward, who is an amazing person, and she has a podcast called The Enthusiasm Enthusiast. So you know me and my pronunciation, but I will put it in the show notes. Definitely some to listen to. She has interviews with people which are right on the pulse of things, and she's looking for people who do things in the world she's enthusiastic about. So her panel was filled with just amazing people. I also got to see Ginger Wiseman, who has the Outlander podcast. And if you guys need a little bit of romance and a lot of historical information, and also information on herbalism and medicine, this is a show and for you. So it's based on a book, Outlander. I read that when my kids were little, and it was kind of an escape at the time. This was like pre-internet, people. We had to read books, okay? So now there's a TV show as well. And I really love her podcast. There were a lot of other people there. Some of the presenters were very much based in radio and are still coming from NPR background, are having their shows on NPR, and as an indie podcaster, it's a little bit intimidating. You feel like, how can you compete? How can you be heard when you are up against this new influx of talent, and talent which has resources behind them, like editors and producers and money? Something us indies don't have. We are like usually a one-person show, maybe a two-person, but that's it. So we don't have social media managers and producers, and anyways. But it's also interesting because one of the things NPR podcasts do really well is to segment and to do storytelling and all of that. So I'm not saying this is what I want to do, because there's no way in the world I have the time, energy, talent, resources to do that. But my question to you is, when you listen to one of our interview shows, do you fall asleep after 5 minutes? Do we need to do something different? So let us know, because it's definitely something to think about. I know my son-in-law told me he went camping somewhere and downloaded 3 podcasts, which are actually in his interest field, to listen to during the drive. And he couldn't, because he said he fell asleep after 5 minutes of people just talking, blah, 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 blah. So, yeah, let me know. Do we need to put some music in, scream in between? Have some crazy laughter going, something to wake you up. Yeah, definitely want to hear from you. And you can either reach us on the website, so the email, sustainablelivingpodcast@gmail.com, or on Patreon. We love to have a conversation on Patreon. This is one of those things I took away from the festival to really be more present there. I keep saying I want to, and then tech problems happen and time problems happen and all of that. So no excuses anymore, okay? And I'm going to have links to the shows I talked about in the show notes because they're great. I want you to listen to them. They're wonderful. Now I want to give you a little bit of an update on me. I know I have talked a lot about my health and, stuff going on, and it has been a rough year for many different reasons. But the good news is that I finally am through with all the different tests and so forth. There is no new cancer growing. There is definitely something. So we determined it's a growth on the scar tissue I have there from the cancer operation I had many, many years ago. Part of that happening was probably that I got deeply into blogging on the blog form called Steemit, and changed from a mostly active standing, running around, bending, teaching yoga lifestyle to sitting on my butt on the computer. So definitely don't do that. Sitting on your butt all day long is really, really bad for you. I'm working on going back into practicing a lot more yoga, and one thing which is really helping me with being active is an app called ActiveFit. You can find it in the app stores. It counts your activity, and if you are on Steemit, you can post to Steemit and you get an upvote which equals money. And you also can collect tokens, which someday go into who knows. But that's not the point. My point is that I'm a little bit competitive with myself, setting a goal and seeing, okay, so my goal is at least 5,000 steps or activity points per day. And the real goal is 10,000. Now, if I'm below 5,000, I will go running through the house if I have to. To get up to those. And so for me, it's a good thing to keep me more active, which this is like nothing. I used to bicycle 50 miles in the morning right after getting up before breakfast and stuff like that. But your life kind of goes up and down. I also had times when I had the cancer and I was sick where going to the bathroom was a big chore. And there were days where just getting up was almost impossible. So, our life goes up and down, just saying. If you're in need to move more, if you have fallen into the lifestyle of sitting on your butt, get up and do something. And ActiveFit might be something to help you. And if not, I'm sure there are a lot of other apps out there you can do. Oh, and then my voice, it's still really weird, and I feel like I have a postnasal drip. And again, I went and got all of that checked, partly because I have the cancer history and partly because I have lost friends this year to cancer. So it's just so much on my mind. Even so, I have insurance. It's certainly not cheap to go and have all of those tests done because, there are co-payments and blah, 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 blah. But I'm fortunate enough to have insurance. And so I went and did those tests. So there's nothing funny going on my vocal cords and, everything looks good. So now it's just a matter of I'm doing salt rinses, and hopefully soon I have my normal voice back because it has been half a year. Just for those of you who might care, because I kept saying about my health. I'm struggling, which I know a lot of us are. Okay, back to the homesteading update. I think I talked about not too long ago that I had 3 babies, even chickens. Not me. Oh my gosh, if I had 3 babies right now, that would be a real challenge. Let's put it that way. No, I had 3 baby chicks, and I didn't even want baby chicks this year because I've been operating on pretty much general overwhelm, and it seemed adding anything wasn't a good idea. So when I was in Arizona, where my husband is working now, one of the baby chicks disappeared. I'm pretty sure it was a hawk because I see hawks coming into the yard and trying to catch some of the other birds which are hanging out there. So I'm pretty sure that's what it is. And those babies keep escaping from the chicken enclosure where they would be safe. The way it is set up, it's not, well, I don't want to say it's not possible, but it's not easy for a hawk to get in. I have 2 of them left, and now one of them turned into a rooster. If you're a long-time listener, said, I think it was a couple of years ago now, I had this influx of roosters, which that's what happens. If you incubate eggs, you end up with half of them turning into little boys, and little boys turn into this loud, obnoxious alarm clock, which go off at 5 o'clock in the morning. And my neighbors didn't like that and called animal control and blah, 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 which at the time was upsetting because I was like, why don't you just talk to me? They were, how do I say that well, let's just be direct. They were slated to go to freezer camp anyways. So it wasn't like I wanted that many roosters around. We just had, again, health issues going on this time with my husband, who is the one who has to do the deed, because I will do everything after the actually dispatch is done. But I just haven't had the nerve yet to put the knife to where it needs to go. So that's on me. But yeah. So anyway, so now we have 2 little roosters running around, and only one of them is starting to voice, but that's definitely something we have to do something about. Also, I think I talked about that we have a lot of gray water, so our bathtub and bathroom sink goes into a gray water system, which consists of 2 different basins where the water is going in under a mulch cover, and then, plants can come and the earth can absorb it and all of that. Well, one of them filled up all the way with soil. And we ended up having soil being backlogged into or I don't know how you say that, vacuumed up or sucked up into the bathtub. Of course, we had to do some. So I've been working on digging that out and making it bigger. And while I was at Podfest, my son was watching dogs, chickens, house, blah, 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 garden. He dug that hole really big and deep for me. So I will take some pictures, especially as I put in, again, the bucket. I'm going to use a bucket to put over the outlet so it has an airspace, and then we're mulching it. We'll take some videos of that. I will publish those to Patreon. But it will be, a few days until all of that is done. That brings me to what's going on with the podcast. That Emily is being very enthusiastic about sustainable living and tiny homes. Tiny homes is kind of her first love, and she has a lot of connections there. But she also started to work with a composting toilet company. So I think we are going to have a lot of expertise coming into that subject right now. It's something a lot of us are interested in. And the more I think about also disasters in the world and what's happening, we really need to get close to our excretions and make sure we know how to take care of them safely if we ever come into a situation where the plumbing and sewer system and all of that is not working. But that's besides the point. The compost toilets are designed for people dwelling in small houses or even people in big houses who want to save water and be more environmentally conscious. So expect a lot more coming from that we get more in-depth information. I have an interview with Terry Page. We are going, and if you don't know who she is, she's a homesteading honey and has a wonderful and a book coming up. We talked a lot about homesteading with kids and a lot of stuff. So look for that the middle of this month, since now we're in October. Pat Foreman also agreed to come on the podcast, and she's the author of City Chicks and quite a few other books. Chickens are her passion and her love, especially chickens in not so much being, well, she also knows a lot about raising chickens on a farm, but she is somebody who is a proponent that everyone should have a few chickens in their backyards to expand the knowledge, kind of to come back to those times of the Victory Garden time where we were a lot more self-sufficient, and also for kids to be closer to understanding where their food source is coming from. She's really wonderful, has so much knowledge. I'm looking forward to having quite a few podcasts coming up with her. Alex Trapp, he lives mostly in Colombia, but is here now visiting his grandmother in Florida, and is putting together what they want to become a world tour of having sessions and events for people to understand their environments, their natural bird population, and to also understand what we as individuals can do to maintain the indigenous birds, insects, and so forth. That's coming up soon. Otherwise, I like to hear from you. What are some of the topics you want to hear? Do you want to be a guest? What is your expertise? What have you done you feel people would really be interested in? We want to hear from people which do great things in their own life, not necessarily are famous, but I feel many of us are having great impact and are change makers in the world. But we might not be known by many, but you might be if you come on the podcast. Do tell us. Email sustainablelivingpodcast@gmail.com. Let us know if you would like to be a guest, or let us know what kind of topics you would like to hear about. Almost forgot to tell you about this big, great project I have going on. I have been wanting to get rid of things for a long time. There's this big movement of decluttering. I don't think I'm ready to be a complete minimalist because this sounds weird, but I haven't quite figured out what it is I want to do. And I'm kind of a little bit old for that, right? But I have been, coming out of working when I had the store. I worked years and years, 7 days a week, all day long. And then things kept happening where I was reactive, whatever it is. Taking care of my grandson, having cancer again come into our life and doing the Gerson therapy. Stuff like that, which weren't necessarily planned, but it happened and it was the right thing to do at the time. But it was a reaction to something happening in my life. And right now, and I hope it stays true for a while, I'm in a position where I can make choices. One of those choices is to kind of go through what has accumulated and decide what is still serving me, what can go. Some simple examples are like when we were doing the Gerson therapy, I was the thinnest I had been in my life. I was 115 pounds. Everyone around me told me I looked like this, but I felt really good in my body. I loved it. I had a bunch of clothes fitting that body. Right now, I don't have that body. It's more where I usually hang out in my weight cycle. It's not 115 pounds, and those clothes don't fit me anymore. So I was holding on to them a little bit because, I don't know, you all have done that, whatever crazy reasons we have in our head not to get rid of things. Now for me is a time to just really say, okay, what do I want in my life and what do I not want in my life? And this is getting a little bit accelerated because a friend needed a place and so she's staying with me. I'm emptying out a room, which is absolutely accelerating the process. So kind of a little bit coming from outside, but it's also almost like a facilitation of getting started with something I have been wanting to do, or maybe not even getting started, but accelerating that process. Expect to hear a lot about that because I know there's parallel movements going on. One of them is a minimalist movement. Then, oh my God, now I forgot the name. There's a Japanese author who has this book about, basically getting rid of stuff. And we have talked about it before. Mary, starts with a K, Totally slipped my mind. Anyways, you probably even know who she is, and you're screaming the name at me right now, but I can't hear you. So that. And then there is a movement of preparing for your own death. That your children and or grandchildren or wherever it is does not have to sift through the accumulation of a lifetime. And I'm definitely, I don't want to be surrounded by this, but it has been touching my life way more than I want to, and getting to. I'm older now than my father was when he passed away. So it's coming to reality, right? Some to consider, to be conscious of that during your lifetime, so we're not putting it on those we leave behind. So there's a little bit of that insert too. So we shall see. You will hear about it for sure. Thank you so much for listening. And this is to celebrate International Podcasting Day. Yay! Did you know there are like over 600,000 podcasts out there? You can find one you love. Take care.